Hello everyone, Hound here with another Vikings War of Clans video. So as many of you know, recently I've moved into a very big clan in the game. I've moved to Blood, and I think it's been something that many people have been, asking me about. How exactly does it feel to play in one of the biggest clans in the game? Tell us a little bit. Have you been able to, fit in? What exactly it feels like? So I feel like this could be a good video to answer some of those questions. Um, First of all, let's start with the fact that being the biggest or one of the bigger clans in the game, most likely means that you're going to play versus most of the big clans very often, and randomly get easier opponents or relatively smaller clans that just can't have as many big players, to compete at a equal level. So that is something to keep in mind when you're playing at this level. Sometimes you get the very big clans that match your size and they have enough players, and that's very interesting battles. But sometimes you also get easier opponents, or kingdoms that are big but not as big or as strong or as united as a clan as big as Blood. So let's talk about the Fury. So we got a relatively easy Fury where I think it was pretty obvious that we had a second place winner and then two other kingdoms. Keep in mind that all these kingdoms were in the range of 150 trillion to 200 trillion. So it's not like they're, that small of a kingdom, but, compared to us, where just the clan Blood is already at like 1 trillion, obviously there is a difference. The clan that came in second with their kingdom, they were only 50 trillion. They fought valiantly, they fought bravely. They gave us a good fight. It wasn't just like a boring Fury. It was actually relatively fun to play. So props to them. Good on them for, being good sports and, trying to make some shards, obviously. When you're in a clan as big as Blood and your opponents are relatively small, what ends up happening is you constantly are onslaughting towns, whether they're traps or, good or bad targets, doesn't really matter because the points are what counts at the end of the day. And, when your opponents are only setting traps, what ends up happening is you end up hitting them. We've had occasions where we were able to destroy some traps with very good shard bonuses. And then we were having occasions where we were just throwing troops at T1 walls or T4 walls. But it's the point of the being in a big clan is you have that many people that just want to get shards. So, you end up opening multiple onslaughts. Sometimes they end up perfectly, sometimes they go badly, but that's just one of the strategies that come with playing at a big size. Is you constantly have to be active in hitting those targets, because if you don't, then someone else is going to hit them, and you don't want to miss on those points. So it's very important. In terms of towers, I would say towers were, for me personally, very comparable to being in a smaller but very active clan. So when you're in a smaller active clan, you constantly have 10, 11 players that are looking around the map to hit towers. When you're in Blood, you multiply that by like 4 or 5, depending on how many people are active, right? You could have 40 people, or you could have 30 people, you could have 60, you could have 80, just depends on how many people are active at that time. Regardless, there's a limited number of towers that spawn on the map, and it doesn't matter how many people are online. If you're fast enough, if you are a top-notch player, you'll get into the onslaughts. Now, the catch here is you'll get into onslaughts if you're very quick. It all depends on how it goes from there. If the onslaught that you're in ends up being the onslaught that makes contact, if you're in the onslaught that makes the breaking contact on the towers, it's a very big difference. Now, when there's 8 onslaught loaded on towers, you don't know which one of the 3 you're hitting, because you don't have time to check. You don't know which tower you're going to make or you're not. So as in, you could be in an onslaught, the onslaught could launch, but there's so many other onslaughts going in. Maybe there's 7 onslaughts just from Blood going at one tower, and then other clans are hitting the other 2. By the time you reload, it'd be impossible. Now, keep in mind, the setters probably are given relative locations to look in at set at. so they don't go and hit the same tower all at once. You try to rotate so everyone gets one tower, you end up breaking all three, all that, you know how it works, right? So keep that in mind. But what I'm trying to express is sometimes if you're in a smaller clan, you are 100% guaranteed to hit that tower, or someone else in your clan is. But whatever it is, one of your onslaughts is going to make contact regardless. If your clan is fast enough and you've loaded on all three towers, one of those is going to make contact. And if you're lucky enough, you're going to be in one of the ones that makes contact, if not all three, right? Here it's different because there's like 8 onslaughts. You don't know which one's which, and everyone loads really quickly. So that being said, you have to be really quick to get into the onslaughts. But even if succeeding that part is not a factor for you, the bigger factor is going to be whether that onslaught that you got in is going to make contact. Is it just going to get the resources, or is it going to come back with some shards? Anyway, that was one of the bigger challenges for me because I'm just used to being in a smaller clan where regardless, I'm able to get into onslaughts. And with my speed, I was able to get into multiple onslaughts back then. Here it was different because if you miss one onslaught, like you try to join and it doesn't register, it just goes down and down and down, and every onslaught fills up. So by the time you get to them, there's going to be no onslaught. So you got to be really quick to get into. Now, I didn't have any issues with getting into the onslaughts. I think I performed relatively well. With my strategy of hitting towers and getting into the onslaughts, I was able to score really well. I ended up spending a lot of time online hitting other targets that they were setting onslaughts on, looking for scout targets, whatever I could to get some more points. I think I did generally very well. Now, I know YouTubers or content creators usually sometimes get a bad rep. They don't try their best, or they're just lazy, whatever it is. I feel like I did relatively well. The points in Fury don't always mean that you're a better player because, as I said, you could just get lucky and get into that onslaught, or you could also be lucky and log on and there's just one prime target that's sitting in like terrible gear for you to ravish and get a lot of points. So I don't treat the point system as a way of saying, oh, like I did good in a big clan. Obviously, we had a very small opponent. Had our opponents been much bigger clans, it could have been a very different outcome for me and for everyone else. So I don't see it as well, I made it into the top 3, so I must be a good player. But I feel like giving my best shot at everything, I was able to prove to myself that I can fit into a big clan. So for me, that is a big winning point. Comparing the shard amounts that I get here in Blood versus a normal Fury. So I would say normal Furies, I usually score close to the 1 trillion points. So I wouldn't say I was scoring any different. That said, I scored most of my points in Blood either in towers or kill events, so double kill event. So that could influence why I had more points and less shards. So relatively lower shards, despite getting close to as a normal points that I would usually get. But wasn't too bad, actually. I would say I'm generally happy with how Fury goes. Fury usually gets me anywhere like 200 to 300 million shards. So this was somewhere around the ballpark. It was good enough. And that's just basically how Fury works. It's, it's a game of speed. Overall, I'm really happy. I feel like I found the clan where people that I like are already playing here. And also, I have been able to make some good friends with other new faces that I've met here. But yeah, that's my experience in Fury. I think we did really well. We got 4th place in ranking, which is relatively nice, especially considering we didn't have, other opponents to score off of. They were mostly traps that we had to get through, but we did well overall. Anyway, I hope this video helps you get a good understanding of how it feels like to be in Blood, and I hope that I was able to share my experience with you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.